All right, that's recording, but I can edit the front part out.
Yeah, that's just
Cut.
easy.
Cut and change. Let's go. Whenever you're ready.
Hi and welcome to NRLHub.com. I'm Jack Mitri and I'm joined by my good buddy and knower of all things rugby league, Michael Edgar.
Good to be here, Jack.
Likewise, mate. We're doing a segment called 5 in 5 where we talk about the 5 hottest topics in NRL, and let's kick it off with probably the most controversial one at the moment, the Richie Fayoso tackle on Greg Inglis. Mick, what does it take for somebody to get sent off?
Well, I would definitely think 2 tackles in the one game.
Yep.
Dumping someone on their head would be justification enough for that team to lose a player for the remainder of the match, and I still don't think that should have an impact on the grading or the possible suspension.
Yep.
There has to be some sort of punishment. Fayoso knew he did the wrong thing, especially after the second one. I thought it was sent off worthy. It could damage a player like Greg Inglis, who's a superstar of the game, and Fayoso is not a clean skin, so I think under those circumstances there was definitely justification for Fayoso to be sent off on the basis that he'd made 2 spear tackles in the one game. So I would support the referee giving him his marching orders.
Okay, we saw an incident where the player Greg Inglis was turned over and he made contact with the top of his head. It could have caused all sorts of injuries, and God forbid that will ever happen. When is someone going to show some character and actually make a strong decision and send a player off? Do we have to wait for somebody to be seriously hurt before either the referee on the field or the video ref make a decision as obvious as that one was to actually march a player? What is it going to take?
Well, you would hope it wouldn't come to that, because I think Inglis has already been put in a dangerous position in a previous match this year. But I would think that the video ref may have some powers that they could execute and call it down to the refs on the field to say that these are really bad. I think if you set a precedent and you drop one player out for an extended period of time and potentially made an example of them, I think you would see less cases of this happening, because if it was a valuable player who did the dangerous tackle and they were rubbed out for 10 plus weeks, similar to what James Graham length of suspension, then that team really feels it. So it then becomes part of your training that you make sure you coach against putting players in a dangerous position. So my philosophy would be that you make an example of one player, and this guy has done it twice in the one game to the same player. I think it should be 12 weeks plus, which would take him through to the almost leading semi-final.
Well, as it is, he's copped a grade 2 charge, which is about 8 weeks. For something as serious as that, surely it must be reflected as a bad incident on the field. Do we start considering sin binning for foul play? I know you're not supposed to be using the sin bin for foul play. Is that something that referees need to start considering?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any punishment that's too heavy for that type of play, because one, it still comes back to that old adage that everybody talks about, that where the mums and dads are watching the game, and the last thing they want to do is see players dumped on their head, because they think, well, that could be my child out there playing, and it could happen to them. And it leads people to potentially take the kids away from the game, especially if there's inertia or inaction about it. So if nothing's done and the suspension doesn't fit the crime, that could also deter people. I think you've got to really come down hard for the sake of the game and the sake of the players' welfare, which is paramount.
It's not a good look, but neither was the Steve Maddai tackle as well. The defence is that it came off the ball and him in the head, but Steve Maddai is another example of he's averaged 2 suspensions per year. He's a repeat offender. Should there have been sterner action for his tackle?
I actually saw that tackle, and in slow motion it did look like it came off the ball. I know he has quite a history of suspensions with the judiciary. I would think that's maybe based on his previous indiscretions and loadings that are going to come through. That's 4 weeks for me for that one. So I think that's justifiable for him spending time on the side. And he's a good player, and he's one of Manly's best, but he doesn't really seem to change his technique, and he always sails close to the win in every game.
Brett Stewart sailed pretty close as well. does he use the Billy Slater defence that it's not in his character for that sort of behaviour, or you know?
I generally think it's not his go. I think he's generally a pretty clean player, a lot cleaner than Matto or Fioso, but yeah, I think Brett Stewart's okay. I don't have a major drama for him.
Yep. Okay.
So now, next one, Asada and Wade Graham. So the interviews have obviously started. I'm not sure if you saw the interview with Shane Flanagan after the game yesterday up at Blue Train. He asked for the reporters not to talk about it, and then we had Wade Graham first came off the rank today. What do you make of it? So obviously there's more than one issue to look at here.
Yep. Look, mate. To start with, the appearance was not good. You know, wearing the cap back to front, wearing thongs to a fairly serious meeting. Sort of took me back to the Coffs Harbour incident.
I was going to say, I remember Willie Mason turning up in denim shorts.
Yeah, it's kind. I mean, you would have thought they'd learned their lesson from that incident. It's not a good look for the game, and it's not representative of what we want to show the public.
One question on that: Essendon have been interviewed. Would their players turn up dressed like Wade Graham was?
No, but the AFL are a lot better than rugby league in more ways than one. That's just one of many different comparisons we can make. Unfortunately, they're about 10 years in front of us in most areas, but that's another topic for another day. But what concerned me more about that was the way the interview was conducted. He gave very short, he was obviously advised to give very short, stonewall type responses, almost Darius Boyd-like, which kind of sets the precedence for the rest of the interviews. And Asada got to the point where, well, that's it, we're not going to do any more interviews. The question becomes, where to from here? You know, do we have a stalemate on our hands?
It's a very difficult question to answer. I think the whole investigation has become a farce. It's just, there's no direction with it. I don't think Asada really knew what they were doing, and I think to me it all comes back to political point scoring by Kate Lundy, Jason Clare and the ACC. Obviously there's been talk about bikie gangs infiltrating powerlifting and the selling of drugs there, but I can't tell you because I don't even think Asada know where they're going with it.
We've heard a lot of that, you know, the offshore gambling and involvement of gangs and whatnot. What have we seen in hard evidence to actually support all that? Now, if the players don't want to cooperate for a start, what do Asada and therefore Labor government do to try and bring this to a head? What happens? Do we just have a Lance Armstrong situation where it keeps getting deferred for 5 or 6 years before something comes out of it?
I don't think the NRL could allow it to be deferred for such a long time because of the impact that we've already seen it have on Cronulla, the club management and the players. I think it looks like it's going to go down a road where I think Asada will have to pull up stumps. I just don't think they'll ever get enough. And I think what they're hoping for with getting the players to roll over on each other hasn't eventuated. So I think from that point of view, it's been farcical and indicative of what a Labor government would do. But like I said, I don't even think they know where it's going from here. So I couldn't tell you.
Is there an insinuation that because Cronulla aren't cooperating, that there is a sense of guilt about why they're not cooperating? Is there an inference that way? To me, if I'm innocent and I've done nothing wrong, I'll come out and answer questions, and pretty much the way James Hird did at the Essendon for the Essendon situation. Do we assume or do we become suspicious that there may be some underlying issues because of the way that Wade Graham interview was conducted?
Personally, no. I think this is all going to be played out in the court of public opinion, and a lot of the public have probably made up their mind.
Yep.
I think they've been told to close ranks, one, to show solidarity, but two, to show Asada and the ACCC that they just can't come in and push them all around. I think the NRL was slow to react in this regard, and I know that David Smith has since been on the phone to Asada telling them, well, we need to get this over and done with. So Asada may be pushing along, but I think they've made a rod for their own back in this one, Jack. I just don't think they have the resources to run this investigation properly, and I think at the end of the day, it's going to fall over. I don't think they'll get the results that they were looking for unless they go back and start the whole process again. But I think the damage has already been done.
Yeah. See, as speaking to a lot of fans, they just want this damn thing over and done with. One way or another, if someone's done the wrong thing, well then they need to be accountable. And if they haven't, well let's get this whole thing over and done with so we can move on.
Absolutely, and you can see that Cronulla played on emotion in their first round, but since then they've gone to pieces. They don't have.
It can't be good for them.
Yeah, they don't have any gas left in the tank
Yeah.
to get them through on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah.
Flanagan said that they come out and they get maybe 1 to 2 sessions for prep for each match each weekend, and that's not enough in a professional age of rugby league. So this season, I think, is already pretty much over. I don't think they'll make the 8 based on what's happened, and it's people have paid a heavy price for it.
Well, speaking of seasons are nearly over, the Tigers have suffered a lot of injuries. They've gone through a really bad period in that regards. Is their season over?
Realistically, yes.
Yeah, you look at the calibre of players that are, your Maltz and Ashford, Chris Lawrence, Benji, of course.
Yeah.
You can work through Lottie Takiri and so on.
Keith Galloway.
That's got to hurt. Unfortunately, they've caught the wrong end of the stick. As a Tiger fan, do they look towards next year, or is there still life in the team? Or you can't really write off a team with Benji and Robbie in there. What do you think?
They didn't make the 8 last year, and I had serious doubts at the start of this year as to whether or not with a full team they had the quality in their 17 to make the 8. I think it's a good time for them to actually blood guys, and maybe the James Tedesco's and Sirenans can get in there and have an extended play at their preferred position.
We're talking about Luke Brooks,
Luke Brooks.
under 20s.
Yeah, could be coming through this week. I know they're talking about Benji coming back, but Farah and Marshall, who could orchestrate wins on their own in the past, they're not playing at that level anymore. They're a little bit older. I don't think they'll make the 8. In fact, I think they'll probably fight it out with Warriors and Panthers for the spoon. And Asta's gone for a month. He's plus 30. I don't know that they've got the depth. It'll be good for them to blood some of the youngsters with a view to the future, but I think every week they'll be